Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, they've been dubbed the Congo Files. Thousands of confidential UN documents related to the assassination of two of its experts in DR Congo in 2017. Documents revealing roadblocks put up by Congolese officials between March 2017 and September this year. Also, Nigeria's President Muhamadu Buhari is under pressure ahead of next February's elections. He admits that Boko Haram insurgents continue to pose a threat. Meanwhile, the opposition PDP candidate makes a tactical choice of a deputy from the southeast in the hopes of increasing his chances. And Senegalese students who had been hoping to head to France to take up courses here are discouraged at news that a huge fee hike's been brought in for overseas students. But first, UN officials looking into last year's murder of two of its experts whilst they were in DR Congo were torn between pursuing the truth and pressure to appease Kinshasa. France 24's sister radio station, RFI, was part of a joint investigation into the deaths carried out by several international news organisations. That investigation suggests that the UN may have buried evidence that Congolese authorities were involved in the killings of Michele Sharp and Zaida Catalan last March.
On the left, Swedish investigator Zaida Catalan, and on the right, her American colleague, Michael Sharp. In 2017, the United Nations entrusted them with a sensitive mission, an in-depth investigation into the violence ravaging Kasai, an unstable region in the heart of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The two UN experts arrived in March, accompanied by 3 drivers and an interpreter. Just a few days after their arrival, they were killed in the town of Bukonde, and so starts a sensitive investigation for MONUSCO, the UN mission in the DRC.
UN investigators suspected agents of the state. They also suspected army officers of having organized this mission and leading them into a dangerous situation where they were killed. Suspicions have been raised because there are lies. The experts were lied to get them there. The UN was following this line of inquiry, but that's not what they told the Security Council.
Information that was deliberately buried at the UN, possibly because of a difference of opinion between those that want the truth at all costs versus those that seek a political compromise with Kinshasa. The Congolese government has denied all responsibility and blames the Kamina and Sapu for the killings. Since 2016, the local militia is responsible for unrest in several provinces of Kasai. The investigation in the DRC is continuing, but with these latest revelations, it could wrap up faster than expected.
Since these leaked documents surfaced, the procedure has sped up. Some state agents have been summoned before the court to answer questions. And they did indeed admit to being state agents and having a role in organizing this mission.
The revelations come just 1 month before the DRC holds presidential elections. The government spokesman has called on the UN to transmit all the information to the Congolese military prosecutor.
Now, 2 former presidents will go head-to-head in next month's runoff vote for Madagascar's presidency. Final results released by the Constitutional Court on Wednesday gave Ange Radswell 39.23% of the first-round ballot and Marc Ravelman 35.35%. As neither got the 50% needed for an outright win, final polls in the race scheduled for December 19th. Gael Borja tells us more.
High Constitutional Court eventually came to a decision on Wednesday morning, 10 days after preliminary results were released by the Electoral Commission. Court's decision was eagerly awaited as several serious complaints had been filed by the main candidates against the Electoral Commission. The independent organization in charge of the election has been fiercely criticized over the last few weeks and accused of being biased and corrupt. The frontrunner in the race for the presidency, André Hadouane, suspects that Electoral Commission software has been hacked. He's asked for an audit. Candidate and former President Eri Razonar-Mampian asked to cancel the election because of irregularities and alleged vote fraud. But High Constitutional Court rejected all the requests and concluded that the election went well and that there had not been any serious irregularities. Now, the final round of campaigning will start on the 3rd of December, with the make-or-break final poll day taking place on the 19th. It's a fraught time. The court asks the two finalists to avoid whipping tensions up further amongst their supporters. Madagascar, one of the poorest countries in the world, is known for its political crisis and instability.
Gail Borgia there for us. Now, Nigeria's president acknowledged that the fight against Boko Haram insurgents, who've terrorized the country for 9 years now, is still not over. On Wednesday, Muhamadu Buhari headed to Maiduguri. There, he visited troops injured in an attack on a military base earlier this month. The city is the birthplace of Boko Haram, and militants linked to the group claimed responsibility for the assault in which 44 people were killed. Buhari had long insisted that Boko Haram had been defeated in a regional military pushback launched under his leadership. He staked his credibility on defeating them and said on Wednesday that he's called a regional meeting for Thursday in Chad to discuss strategy in tackling Boko Haram. Elections are due in February, and with Buhari increasingly under pressure, the opposition PDP candidate's chosen a deputy from the southeast in the hopes of increasing his chances. Nicolas Chaumin has more.
The two favourites in Nigeria's presidential election next February are both northerners, incumbent Muhammadu Buhari and opposition leader Atiku Abubakar. Analysts say Abubakar's recent choice of Peter Obi as his running mate was a clever move. Obi hails from the southeast, where most people are Igbos and where Buhari is unpopular. That's because he deployed troops to the streets there last year to crack down on secessionists. It reminded older voters of the 1967 to 1970 war over Biafra, when the region had already sought independence. Around 1 million people were killed, and many Igbos feel they have been marginalized ever since. That's why they will back Peter Obi.
If we take the position of vice presidency, I think the narratives around this area will definitely change for the better. We are going to be accommodated better. We are going to be valued. We are going to be appreciated. That is what Igbos want. We are hardworking people.
But local leaders of Buhari's APC party contend that the incumbent has done much more than his predecessors for Nigeria's southeast.
Our infrastructure in the southeast here was in total state of shambles. But now, not only that it has been repaired, but it's been put in a very right perspective, in good use. So here now we are more comfortable with the Buhari anti-corruption drive, and also government projects are being visible.
In the last election, registered voters in the 5 states of the southeast accounted for 7 out of a total of 67 million voters. And Igbo has not been president or vice president of Africa's most populous country since Nigeria's transition to civilian rule in 1999.
Senegalese students looking to study abroad are feeling the pinch after French authorities announced a hike in university registration fees in France. France has promised to double the number of scholarships awarded to foreign students, but details on this front are still sketchy. And at the University of Dakar, students hoping to head to Europe are wrestling with uncertainty. Last year, nearly 10,000 Senegalese came to France to complete their higher education. Our correspondents have more.
It's student registration day at Dakar University. 23-year-old Abdoulaye is welcoming new students at the Faculty of Law. He wanted to complete his PhD in France, but since university fees for students outside of the EU are set to shoot up by as much as 15 times the current cost next year, his family can't afford to send him any more.
Asking them for the fees before the increase was already difficult, and now even more so. I much prefer to grin and bear it, stay at home, work here, and study here.
At Campus France, a branch of the French Embassy, students have flocked to seek advice on paying their studies abroad. Since the increase in tuition fees was announced, 28-year-old Sheikh has been looking for funding to pursue a master's in France. The news is worrying.
The only means I have to finance my studies is to get a scholarship. The scholarships they offer are often selective, so it's down to luck. If I'm lucky, I can benefit from this scholarship.
Cheikh Oumar Seck successfully finished his studies near Marseille in France. Once he came back to Senegal, he was employed in this prestigious accounting firm. The new decision is disappointing, he says. He wouldn't be where he is today if he hadn't had the opportunity of going to a French university.
To give you a concrete example, here at our firm, I would say that more than half, 70% of the workforce, are people who have studied abroad and mostly in France. You can see what an advantage it is when you gain international experience, especially in French universities. It's really an added guarantee when it comes to recruitment.
According to Senegal's education minister, it's up to students to adapt to the fee hike if they want to study in France.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.
Maidan Square in Kiev, Ukraine. The government has just authorized the police to open fire on pro-European protesters. The carnage leaves 80 people dead and hundreds wounded. That was 5 years ago. Today, our France 24 reporters are back in Kiev. What has become of the hopes of the protesters? Are the Ukrainians still fighting to join the European Union?
This week, we revisit Maidan, Independence Square in Kiev, Ukraine, for France 24.